Rising sea levels are a major consequence of climate change and are projected to unleash disasters of biblical proportions. Models show that sea levels could rise by up to 6 meters in the next century, placing hundreds of millions of people at risk. Cities like New York would be swamped, and countries like Bangladesh would become uninhabitable. In Mexico, CNN's Aisha Sasay spends time with a man who is tackling the problem of sea rise at its source.
Carl Hodges is proposing a unique and bold partnership with Mother Nature. He's developed a system that could turn the tide on rising sea levels and transform the world's coastal deserts into fertile farmland.
The Seawater Foundation started because way back in the 60s, as an atmospheric physicist, I became convinced that by the year 2000, when there'd be twice as many people, we would have to use seawater for food production, wealth production, and as a basis for new communities along the coast of the world, and particularly the 40,000 miles of desert coast.
In the Mexican town of Bahia Quino, Hodges' flagship project is bringing new life to abandoned farmland.
Here we're developing seawater systems to replace freshwater agriculture that has disappeared. They used up the freshwater. There's 200,000 hectares of abandoned farms. We're going to revitalize them, turn them green again using seawater. This is a 20-inch well that brought this place to life, and when it died, the place died.
Seawater irrigation begins with a series of rivers dug inland from the ocean.
A key of this system is that it's really truly integrated. We take water from the sea. That water goes on to produce plants both in the water and on the land. It goes in to produce animals, shrimp and fish, and then with their excrement involved, it irrigates trees that are forest. The forests have meadows of crops that provide food and fuel and beauty. I think that's an important value.
Using seawater to irrigate farmland, it's creating new ecosystems, jobs and infrastructure, and potentially offsetting sea level rise across the world's coastal communities.
We can supplement to a large extent the basic food crops of the world using seawater agriculture. Under the coastal plain of Hermosillo, there is a space that used to be full of fresh water. It has now been pumped out, and as a result, there's this bowl, and it looks almost like a bowl when you look at the topography. In the 50s, when they started really going crazy with the wealth generation, was 10 meters above. So the water level has gone down 70 meters.
So you have the agriculture and the aquaculture, and I know that at the heart of your vision for the agriculture is a plant called Salicornia. Tell us about that.
It's an amazing plant. It has about 30 to 40% very high quality vegetable oil. It's like soybean, and it's about 40% protein. And now it's the star.
Salicornia is a sea-tolerant plant that grows in salt marshes and mangroves. It produces both food and biofuel. For Hodges, its renewable energy and carbon absorption capacities give it huge potential.
The need for a sustainable biofuel that addresses the problems of declining fossil fuels, particularly petroleum, with these kind of crops, with an integrated system. In the case of Salicornia, we could make a biodiesel that the system that produced it, with the shrimp and everything else in it, takes 10 times the carbon out of the air that when you use that fuel goes in.
We can have the Salicornia straw as solid biofuel, and we can use it like this, or we can have the log. This is a straw.
Okay. You know, the thing I like about this, it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels like a solid biofuel.
Yeah.
Between here and Guaymas, our installed capacity of 1,000 cubic meters per second. That's 1/5 of the current ice melt of the Antarctic. We could stop sea level rise if we really got with it in 10 years. So whenever we design a farm and we'll dig any dirt, we'll do this. This is a micro catchment area for fresh water. So the seawater communities will have their own fresh water because it's done right.
And those won't run dry this time?
They won't run dry ever.
What about the concern that by basically moving seawater inland, ultimately you'll just create a huge amount of salt deposit in the soil, and ultimately the soil won't be able to grow anything anyway?
Well, the green we're looking at here today, we've been growing those crops for 23 years, and you didn't see any salt. The reason you don't see that is that the seawater is irrigated at a rate that each irrigation flushes the salt down. But if you do it right, where you're close to the coast, and by that I mean within 50, 100 kilometers, there's no reason that you should have a problem with the soil. In fact, you'll build soil. It's about as fresh and the best shrimp you've ever seen. They're absolutely perfect. After this, we produce fish, tilapia primarily, but a spectrum of fish. And then after the fish, we have macroalgae to sort of reduce the nutrient load, and then bivalves, filter feeders. They look great.
Currently, the seawater project in Bahia Kino covers 40 hectares. Hodges is looking to expand that to 5,000 hectares next year.
Incredible.
This would be the center, you know, and this would be the big plaza where the water and the fountains are going to be, and our piers are going to be one pier, where the kids are going to be jumping out.
Great. I'm crazy about piers. I think it's an environmentally good thing to do as opposed to a negative.
The land is obtained through a mixture of leasing and buying. The seawater farms will rely on investment from a range of stakeholders, including government, business, and industry sectors. How much will it cost here in Mexico?
Here in Mexico, for the actual farming part, the sea forest with their trees and so on, is between probably $2,000 and $3,000 a hectare. Now, if it's previous farmland, it could be less than that. It only takes 7.8 years to build 25 million hectares, stop sea level rise, create hundreds of millions of jobs, and begin to seriously address taking carbon out of the air.
Hodges remains convinced that we have it in our power to stabilize the climate and believes science can solve the problem.
I see seawater rivers around the world. Right now we're looking at 34 countries where we would have 50 rivers of the scale we've been looking at and bigger. And they would come inland and they would irrigate a quantity of desert coast in an ecologically sound fashion of a scale to take so much water inland that we'd stop sea level rise in about 10 years. We'd catch up with its rate of increase. This project is designed to show we can fix it with really good science. We can fix it with really good effort with these alliances, and we can make it beautiful and have one hell of a good time.
From the man who wants to fight climate change with the sea, we meet the woman who says the world's water systems need defending if we're to be diverted from catastrophe.
Water is the vehicle through which climate change will be felt. Whether it's drought and desertification, floods, or increased severity of storms, all of the things that we fear about climate change will be felt through water.